Hello friends, welcome back. Today I'm talking about the difference between emotional flashbacks and a normal emotional reaction. Okay, I know that once we learn about complex PTSD, right, it feels so good because we finally have a name for what we've been working through. But the tendency, we can start to think that every emotion we have now is an emotional flashback, and I want to kind of distinguish the difference in this video. So with that in mind, let's get started. For those that don't know me, my name is Michelle. I'm a life and relationship coach. I'm the founder of the Thriver School of Transformation, which is a monthly membership where we meet weekly live. We work through these side effects of complex PTSD together. So make sure you check out that link if that's something you're interested in. Okay, so emotional flashback and normal emotional reaction. The first thing I wanted to do is just kind of explain really quick for those that aren't as familiar with emotional flashbacks as others. So we know and understand what a PTSD flashback is, right? When somebody has a PTSD flashback, let's think of somebody that was in war. Actually, I'm thinking of my uncle right now. When he came back from being overseas, the sound of a helicopter could send him to the ground. Like, he would hear the helicopter and he would hit the floor without any thought. Like, there was no conscious awareness. It was helicopter, boom, he was down. And that was a PTSD flashback, where the sound of something in the present moment, while having nothing to do with the trauma of the past, right? Because this is a normal helicopter just going by, has nothing to do with war, hijacks the person's nervous system. The brain confuses past and present, and you are acting as if the trauma that you endured in the past is happening at this moment. That's PTSD flashbacks. Now, those are overwhelming and they are not fun, but they're easier than CPTSD flashbacks. And I say that because at least my uncle knew, like, oh, that helicopter was what did it, and he has a memory as to why that happened. Now, with complex PTSD, which often comes about because of prolonged long-term abuse, where it's not necessarily one memory or one main event, where it's a series of low-grade, constant, consistent psychological abuse. And I say low grade, not minimizing it. What I really mean is just abuse that flies under the radar, okay? Well, that causes somebody to go into an emotional reaction where their nervous system is hijacked, their amygdala is hijacked, and their brain confuses past and present. However, there's no memory there's no clear memory as to why. So my uncle was like, oh, helicopter, floor, I get it. Emotional flashback, you have this intense reaction to something, and that reaction could throw you into your fight, and you could be really aggressive or really angry, and it not make sense in a way. Or you can shut down and disconnect and just feel like your body is there, but you just checked out, and you don't know why. Especially in the beginning, when you're first working through your healing journey. You just have these reactions. There's no warning. You're not exactly clear as to what's setting them off, and you have no memory of the past. So that's why I say they're worse, because it's like without the understanding, it's confusing and scary. So that's the difference between PTSD flashbacks and CPTSD flashbacks. So what's the difference between an emotional flashback and a normal feeling, okay? Because I think sometimes what happens is we learn about emotional flashbacks, and then every emotion, we start to think there's something wrong with that emotion. Maybe it's a flashback, and the reality is it might just be an emotion, okay? When you're recovering from CPTSD, you're going to have feelings. You're going to get upset, you're going to get angry, you're going to get frustrated, you're going to get disappointed, you're going to be sad, you're going to be happy. That's what healing is. Having access to all of your feelings, right? And being able to feel like you. So I just wanted to clarify that healing doesn't mean that you don't ever get upset or angry or sad or anything like that. Okay, so if you want to know if you're having a regular feeling or an emotional flashback, one thing that you can ask yourself, okay, when you think of the times that you're questioning, right? Just kind of bring it into your conscious awareness, and then ask yourself if the degree of emotion that you had to the situation, if they're in par, or do you feel like what happened and your reaction is so much higher than what that feeling merits. That's one thing that can help you to know if it's an emotion or an emotional flashback. Something else that can help is if you can start kind of paying attention to your inner dialogue at the times that you're questioning. Okay, so for example, if you're upset with somebody's actions and you're looking at it objectively and you can look at it and understand why that's upsetting you, and then, you know, you're having a normal emotional reaction. Now, if that looking at what happened brings on an intense, sharp inner critic. Now, that can be an inner critic or an outer critic. In other words, the words that and the expressions that are coming up into your mind are so harsh and border abusive, right? Whether it's to self or in your mind about the other person, to such a degree, you might want to pause and ask yourself, did anyone ever talk to me like that? Like, whose voice is that? Is that really me? Or is that the voice of somebody maybe from my past that was abusive? And if you notice it's not your voice, that harshness that's coming on, whether directed at self or the other person, then you possibly may be having an emotional flashback. The third way that you can tell is if a little bit of time goes by, right, and now you kind of feel you again. You feel like you, and you look back on the situation and you ask yourself things like, why did I get so mad? Or like, why, like, what happened? Why couldn't I just handle it from how I see it right now? And you see that difference and that disconnect, then it's possible that you're having an emotional flashback as well. And the last way I'm going to mention is if you look at your emotional flashbacks of the past and you just make a list, a small list. It doesn't have to be in so much detail. Just one sentence that reminds you of the trigger, okay? And if you ask yourself, why might that be an emotional flashback? In other words, just have curiosity. Don't tell yourself, this is an emotional flashback, or this isn't an emotional flashback. Just be curious as to what might this remind me of. Is there something that happened in the past that reminds me of this? Once you can make that connection, if you see that, then that helps you to know if it is an emotional flashback. And that's when you can begin processing and working through emotional flashbacks. But we can't do that until we can start noticing when we're having them. Okay, the first step in healing is knowing what emotional flashbacks look like, what they feel like, and then we can start processing and working through them. Okay, but we can't work through something that we can't identify. So this is the first step. I'll do another video on how to process and release them in the future. But until then, if you're struggling and you need some extra help, I always end my videos saying this, make sure you check out the Thriver School of Transformation, because it is a monthly membership and we meet live weekly and we work through the side effects of complex PTSD together so that you don't have to do it alone.